So I invite you to just go ahead and just take a deep, relaxing breath. Just gently, just breathe in, breathe out. Just allowing the breath to come naturally. No forcing. Just gently breathing in and breathing out. Letting your body just melt into the chair. Allowing your feet to root you to Mother Earth. Now I invite you to go into your imagination. Just imagine a soft, velvety sensation beginning to surround and touch and move through your head. The crown chakra, where faith resides. Within this faith, assurance resides. Within this faith, a deep confidence resides. Knowing resides. And these things are not simply dreams or just imagination. These things are a deep, embodied knowing. That knowing is faith. Faith is not wishful thinking. Faith is a knowing of the truth deep within. Faith is your birthright. It is your natural state. Faith is who you are. Know and accept this moment. Know the nowness that is your birthright. And as it arises from within you, know that all realities are connected. Connected and unfolding at once. Within you and all around you. allow yourself the gift of this expanded awareness. And as we move into the silence, allow yourself to relax into this faith now. Releasing any need to know or any need to understand. Releasing the need to control the future or the need to understand the past. As we move into the silence. And as we begin to bring our awareness back to this room and back to this present moment, we continue to allow release. To release any temptation to ask, why me? And instead replace it with, why not me? You are a perfect spiritual being. You are the light that shines within all. That inner light that radiates always. Shining on all of life, just as life shines down on you. And I invite you to take a deep breath, allowing it to flood your entire body with this sensation of knowing, this sensation of holding yourself in true awareness. Continuing to bring your awareness back to this present moment, back to this time and this space. And know that the divine in me honors and recognizes the divine in you. Namaste. They mentioned snow falling at Christmas, and I'm kind of excited to actually be able to maybe experience a white Christmas. Because in Texas, there was nothing worse than as a kid watching all these Christmas movies where kids are out sledding and having a good time, only to wake up and find out that it's 80 degrees on Christmas morning. I grew up in West Texas where there were literally tumbleweeds that will blow across the road. And there were times people would actually take tumbleweeds and spray paint them white and make snowmen. That's how desperate we were. So anyway. So as I mentioned earlier, today is our first Sunday of Advent, and this is the time where hope and faith are reborn. Now, speaking of music, I'm gonna admit something to everybody that I normally just keep quiet, keep at home between Mindy and I, or perhaps people that know me well. And I'm kind of one of those people who just kind of lives my life trapped in a musical. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that, but I will throw in a disclaimer before I do that as well. Generally, I don't care much for musicals. I've seen a few Broadway shows like Mamma Mia and Wicked, and I really enjoyed them. I thought they were great. I got into them. But for the most part, I don't willingly attend musicals unless somebody kind of grabs me and traps me and takes me to one. So I heard a yeah right over there, and I know who that was. We'll talk later. But so what do I say? What do I mean when I say that I live my life trapped in a musical? Well, songs come to me all the time, no matter what I'm doing. I'll hear one on the radio and I'll sing it forever. And some of us were just talking about this before the service, but I get what's called one of those earworms where it just plays over and over. I'll sometimes make one up, or I'll hear one at church on Sunday and I swear I will sing it for 3 days after, no matter what I do. And they're good songs, Pete, I appreciate it, but sometimes I just want to get them out of my head when I leave here. But there's even times when I'll even take one and I'll make up new words to it. But anyway, I don't know why. I'll sometimes have dreams of songs. And there are songs that probably don't even really exist because they don't make any sense. Yet I will sing them anyway. And Mindy, unfortunately, poor wife of mine, she seems to have gotten used to it because I'll just be blaring out in the house and she just keeps on doing whatever she's doing now and just lets me go with it. But I tell you this because I was looking through our Unity Advent book leading up to the season of Advent, and I see the word faith. And sure enough, a song comes to mind. And it's George Michael. And he starts going through my head, because I got to have faith. And I'm not going to sing that because I don't have the next Elvis voice. But anyway. But you know what I mean. Even those of you who would probably deny knowing it, know it. And I'm pointing at you because of what you said earlier. But anyway. But the words probably really aren't appropriate for me to sing here at church this morning. But there are a lot of songs on faith. Especially this time of year we hear them when we turn on the radio. People sing about it. People talk about it. Don't feel as if you have enough money? Have faith. Feel like you're catching a cold around Christmas and don't want to? Have faith. It won't happen. Feel like you're going to flunk that test that you've been studying so hard for? Have faith. You hear it all the time. Sometimes I feel like grabbing some of those people by the collar, shaking them and saying, no, you have faith. But anyway, even our co-founder Charles Fillmore got on the faith train. He defined faith as the perceiving power of the mind linked with the power to shape substance. Spiritual assurance, the power to do the seemingly impossible. It is a magnetic power that draws unto us our heart's desire from the invisible spiritual substance. Faith is a deep inner knowing that that which is sought is already ours for the taking. Now, he also quoted a biblical verse that I mentioned earlier and that Kay read in our daily word, Hebrews 11:11. Now, faith is assurance of things hoped for. So if you're like me, you read that verse and you're like, okay, but it says things hoped for. Well, I hope to have that brand new Maserati waiting for me out in the parking lot, but it's still not there. So Maseratis aside, it's really easy to have faith when in the things that are obvious, isn't it? Such as we have faith that 10 o'clock a.m. follows 9 o'clock a.m. We know that. We have faith that that's going to happen. Or thankfully here in Wisconsin, spring follows the winter. But those types of faith take no true effort on our part. That's what makes them so easy. They take no effort. It's just a knowing that this is going to happen, and we can just kind of kick back and relax and have faith that these types of things are going to happen. But it's when it takes real effort that kind of throws us off, isn't it? That's the type of thing that just makes us want to look at George Michael when he's singing I Gotta Have Faith on the radio and say, oh, just shut up already. So it becomes really important to not only talk about having faith, but into understanding what faith really is. So let's start with a question here, and you don't have to answer it out loud. But do you think that maybe sometimes faith is difficult due to our lack of belief in faith? It's kind of like the chicken or the egg puzzle. That's kind of what I think about when I think about it. You know, which came first, the chicken or the egg? So what about faith? Did faith seemingly not work because we didn't believe? Or did our lack of belief cause faith not to work? It's just kind of an interesting thing to ponder when we're thinking about faith. So as you probably all know by now, I like to study the book Lessons in Truth. So in her book, Lessons in Truth, Emily Cady states, faith takes right hold of the substance of the things desired and brings into the world of evidence the things that were before not seen. So where does the Maserati fall into it? And does it even fall into, or whatever kind of car you like? I'm sure other people want something different, but a Tesla, okay, that's a good one too. But in our Advent book, Unity Minister Reverend Deanne Morency kind of answers this for us when she mentions, faith does not guarantee everything will work out exactly as we hoped. However, challenges and disappointments are invitations to see anew, to look beneath the surface so that we may deepen our awareness of God and ultimately experience the divine. Now she goes on to say, faith anchored in the one power and one presence, which happens to be one of Unity's core beliefs, enables us to choose peace, to see love, experience joy, and ultimately know our Christ nature more fully. So this begins to shape faith a little bit differently. It enables us to see that maybe we don't have the Maserati, but it doesn't mean that things aren't still unfolding for our highest good. Maybe having that specific type of car isn't for my highest good. Maybe I'm meant to have a Honda. But maybe that Honda has a safety feature that will one day save my life or the life of one of my passengers. Maybe that Honda will last me 20 years where I don't have to buy another car, and the Maserati maybe only 2. So what faith really begins to boil down to is the knowing. It's the knowing that everything is working out for my highest good, even if it doesn't initially necessarily appear that way. So I remember back to my traditional teachings. I grew up Baptist, for those of you who don't know me well. And we were taught that our rewards, and that's what they called them, were stored up in this place called heaven. And once you transitioned from this life, you were destined to receive these rewards if you went to heaven. Now, there were stipulations in actually getting to heaven to get those rewards, but the underlying message was that you could forget getting it now in this lifetime. You had to wait for some future date. But luckily, I don't believe that. I don't believe that we have to wait. I believe that we are here to experience our highest good right here and right now in this present moment. It may not always turn out exactly as we had hoped, but it doesn't mean that it's not turning out or that faith isn't working. It doesn't mean that our prayers aren't being answered or that we have to wait for some future moment. But faith can be challenging, can it? That is exactly why there are so many songs on faith. So many books written about faith. That's why we hear about it in churches. We hear about it and watch it. People talk about it in TED Talks and seminars. It's because it's not easy. It requires walking a true spiritual path to believe and to rely on your faith. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. once stated, "Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase." And it's true. It's like sometimes opening a door and finding the area over the threshold is completely dark. Yet stepping into it and knowing that you're not going to trip over something right when you walk into that darkness. And if you're like me, you can have faith all day long. We can look people in the eye and proclaim, "Have faith." But practicing it ourselves, it can sometimes be a whole other ballgame. So in the Advent book, Reverend Ellen Davenport, she quotes a biblical verse, Mark 9:24. "I believe, help my unbelief." I read that and I was like, what in the heck is this verse saying? I don't understand it at all. It made absolutely no sense to me, but I kind of sat with it and I was like, okay, I'm going to kind of meditate on it and think about it for a minute. When we practice our principles, we know that things will work out for our highest good. Now, Unity co-founder Myrtle Fillmore, she once heard the words, "I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness." Now, it's important to know that Myrtle Fillmore, she'd been given about 6 months to live or so when she heard those words. She'd been diagnosed with tuberculosis, and those 13 words caused a dramatic shift in her thinking and in the way she saw faith. She began to walk by faith, not by sight, and in 2 years she was healed. She saw beyond her diagnosis because she knew that she wasn't that diagnosis. That's not the truth of who she was. What she was a child of God or of the divine, and nothing was going to change that. Not a diagnosis of the body. Even if she had transitioned from this life due to that tuberculosis, it did not change the fact that she was a child of God, and that is what she decided to focus on and have faith in. So it's not always easy, but we can peer into that dark staircase and know that each step, the closer we get to the bottom of it, will begin to reveal a little bit of light, step by step. And we can also learn to begin to know that faith isn't necessarily measured by whether or not things work out in the exact manner that we had hoped. Maybe the initial answer to whatever it is we're asking for is not right now. I found myself right into the mix of this one several years ago. My faith had been wavering for years up to that point. I was working jobs where I felt completely trapped, and the cubicle existence was not what I had ever envisioned for myself. Yet I found myself in it day after day. And I often felt smothered in that life. I'd wake up and I would just feel this clenching in my gut. But I never wavered in my faith in knowing that I was supposed to be doing something more. But there were times that I did not feel that. I believed I was supposed to be doing something different. There was the belief in Mark 24, that verse. But I also wasn't so sure I'd ever do it. There was the unbelief. I believe, help me unbelieve. But I think back to 10 years or 15 years ago when I was working in that cubicle. And I ask myself now, would I have been ready then? Would I have been ready to be standing up here then? The answer I can probably come up with is probably not. I had to wait until the right time. So it's important to remember that the timing may not always match up to our own timetable. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen according to our highest good. So in the spiritual world, unfortunately, we don't always have a clear-cut path from point A to point B. Sometimes that path is twisty and windy. Sometimes we have to bushwhack a little bit and clear it off. And sometimes we have to create an entirely new path. The thing is that we have to first, though, be willing to journey onto that path, even when it's not clear. We have to be willing to trust that point B is there, even if we can't see it. And we have to trust that point B is for our highest good, even if we arrive there and find that point B is a cabin rather than that beach cabana we had envisioned. And I could really use that beach cabana right now. But anyway. Now, we also have to address our core beliefs when it comes to faith. Remember again, I believe, help my unbelief. So let's just face it, sometimes we get in our own way. And when we do, we feel like we are trudging through a thick mud. We'll try to take a step and it just kind of feels like, that one step forward, 3 steps back. So a few years ago, I started my own small publishing and editing business. And I would focus on independent authors and I would edit their work and help them through the self-publishing process, doing marketing plans and all of that kind of stuff. Now, I met most of my clients through friends and church and other writing groups and things like that. They were people that I knew. But before long, people I didn't know started contacting me for helps with their books. And that's what most business owners want, right? You want people that don't know you start to contact you. Because you're like, hey, they're finding my presence online. My name must be spreading through reputation, whatever it is. And I began to feel like my little business was finally starting to gain a little bit of traction. But suddenly I just stopped. And I began to make excuses. I still had my full-time job, and I would complain about not having enough time. Or I would complain about coming home from my full-time job tired, thinking, I've got to sit down and edit that book. I've got to write a marketing plan. But basically, if there was an excuse for it, I had it. But fast forward a couple years or so, and I began to think about why I did that. I wanted my own business. At least I thought I did. So why did I sabotage myself? And I began to really think about it, and I prayed on it, and I meditated on it, affirming it to be revealed, and finally it did. I realized that I was afraid. I began to become afraid of what would happen if the business really took off. Would people like my work? Was I really being helpful to people? What if somebody suddenly found out what I felt about myself at the time? That I wasn't confident in what I was doing? What would happen if it got to the point where I actually had to quit my full-time job for my business? Would there be enough finances? Now, whether true or not, I realized that I felt those things deep down inside. I allowed my ego to jump in, and instead of doing what it was I really wanted to be doing at that time, I made excuses to not do it out of fear. I realized that I was afraid that people would judge me. Maybe ask, hey, Evan, why are you leaving this great job with the health insurance and the 401k and all of that stuff? And what if my business failed? What would people think about me then? So to me, all of this proves that it becomes so very important to determine why. Why are we standing in our own way? Because when we know the why, we can begin to address it. And it's like with anything, it's easier to begin to heal or to manage when we understand the root cause, isn't it? Then we're not just throwing a blanket over it. We're actually addressing it from the root cause. So one of the first things maybe to ask yourself is, do my words and my feelings align? I'm saying I want this, but is it what I really want? In other words, am I saying this just because it's what I think someone else thinks is best for me? Or am I wanting this just to settle? Do I not feel like I'm worthy to get the real deal, so I'm settling for this one over here instead? So first, it's important to become really clear about what it is that you want. Not what Aunt Ethel wants for you, not what your best friend wants for you, what it is that you want. And it doesn't matter how outlandish it may sound to you. I think far too often we kind of hold back. We hold back due to maybe feelings of unworthiness or fear. And we sell ourselves short. We may think, this thing I want over here, well, that one's not going to happen. There's no way that could happen. That's too crazy. That's too big of a dream. It can never happen to somebody like me. Although that's the thing I really want. I'm just going to settle on this one over here. Then that one thing happens and you find that you still want the other one. We've got to get rid of that erroneous thinking. It doesn't do us any good whatsoever, and it often prevents us from giving our gifts to the world or for living to our fullest potential. Now, we're going to jumpstart that here a little bit today in a few minutes, and I'm going to try to help you at least get started on jumpstarting to kind of clear out your chakras a little bit. Now, the faith faculty is located in the center of the head, right between your eyes and your ears. And one thing is that when we use it according to only those things that we actually see with our physical eyes, we limit our faith. When we use our crown chakra and our faith chakra to only believe in those things that we see with our physical eyes or hear with our physical ears, we limit its power and we limit our faith. We limit it because it goes far deeper than that. Remember, faith is a release. It's a release of trying to control the outcome. Knowing that our life is unfolding exactly as it should according to our highest good. It's living our lives from our fullest potential without any kind of fear or judgment. Releasing those things that don't serve us, such as lack or fear or self-judgment, because those things do not serve our highest good. So I'd like to ask you to join me in this small exercise just to kind of start clearing out that chakra a little bit and kind of releasing some of those blockages. If you'll just close your eyes if you feel comfortable for just a moment, or find an object just to kind of stare at, kind of soften your gaze on. And just kind of sit quietly for a moment until you feel relaxed. And just begin to focus your attention on the crown of your head, which represents the Christ or the divine center. And I invite you to silently say to yourself, "The Christ of God is quickened in me." Next, begin to move the center of your attention to your forehead, often thought of as a representation of the conscious level of mind. Beginning to realize that you are consciously aware that the Christ of God is being quickened in you. And say or think silently, "I am aware that the Christ of God is quickened in me." Now begin to move your center of attention to your solar plexus, which represents the subconscious level of mind. Now, in order to accept your awareness that the Christ of God is being deepened in you, at the deepest level of your being, silently affirm to yourself, "I am grateful that the Christ of God is being quickened in me." Now let your center of attention travel to the middle of your head, the faith center, and softly affirm to yourself, "The Christ in me calls forth my disciple faculty of faith." And as you do this, I invite you to visualize Jesus or some other spiritual teacher of your choosing speaking the words, according to your faith, be it done unto you. And just silently to yourself, conclude this exercise by silently saying, I am grateful. Feel free to open your eyes whenever you're ready. So back to Myrtle Fillmore. She had her own statement of faith, and it was something that she called her I am statement. And I wanted to share it with you as we end here today. She said, I am health, strength, peace, happiness, and prosperity. The Spirit of God, who is active in me, flows through my body in a purifying, cleansing, healing stream that removes all obstructions and brings peace, health, and harmony to my body. I am well, strong, and vital. I am beautiful, peaceful, and poised. I am eternally youthful. I am buoyant, happy, and free. I shall rise in the morning filled with energy, radiance, and the power to accomplish whatever I find to do. Namaste.